culture backgrounds around the world. Remember, we have to do pastel analysis: political, economic, socio-cultural, technological, environmental, and legal analysis, right? After I covered this one, I have basically covered 4 factors of the 6. So you'll be working with your team on Wednesday here in the class, okay? Because P, E, and L we covered that last week, and then we're covering S right now. So, sociocultural. First of all, culture is one of the most important factors when you want to enter into another country, expand your business. You have to be very careful. One of the most important things, you have to learn about the other culture to make your expansion, your endeavor successful, would be understanding their culture. Let me give you a couple of examples about how companies lost big, huge deals just because of lack of understanding of the other culture. There was actually a memoir I was reading. This guy didn't lose it because he forced himself. There was actually a memoir I was reading about an executive, Dutch executive who traveled to Saudi Arabia. They closed a deal, so now he's invited for basically, he says, orientation and all that. So he basically flies there. They come and pick him up. He says in his memoir, he says, I was waiting for the cocktail night for the introduction. I thought that women in a cocktail dress will be there and men with suits, everybody will be there. So I was preparing myself for that night. They came to my hotel, picked me up. We went to like a desert kind of thing, and then it was tents from distance. I could see tents there set up. So we went there, and for them, they spent a lot of money to do all of that because they respected their foreign guests. So he says, we went there, I went inside, I'm like, wow, I have to sit on the floor, and he has suit on. Everybody else had like a comfortable dress to be able, which is the white long dresses for men, and there was no female at all. He's like, there was no female at all, no drink, of course, at all, and I'm the only one in my suit, so I don't know how to sit actually on the floor now with this uncomfortable suit that I have on. He's like, okay, I forced myself. I'm like, it's okay. I'm looking around to see how other ones are dressing and where are the females. No females, of course. And he's waiting for the dinner. And they bring actually a big tray of a whole lamb in it for dinner, serve it. And he's like, I'm waiting for the basically plates and utensils to be served so I can help myself. And there's no such a thing, and I'm waiting, and he's like, all of a sudden, I noticed that everybody's rolling their sticks up and going with hands. He's like, I'm thinking in my head, you're not doing that. And I'm thinking about the money I have to get paid. I'm like, no, you're doing it. He's like, in a couple of seconds, split of a second, I'm thinking, are you going to lose all that money, or are you going to do it? So, and then he's like, I closed my eyes, I said, no, you'll be doing it, because you're not going to lose all that money for that. So he basically pushed himself, and even though he was executive, he knew where he's going. So you would expect that they have a good understanding of the culture. He knew where he's going. They already had a deal, so they went through a set of process negotiations, but still, he had a lack of understanding. Was it this class I told you guys that I had exactly the same experience? No, it wasn't this class. So I went actually... And I do understand the cultures because I studied and I traveled the world. So I was in Morocco in my host house, and she had, her uncle was sick, so she said, let me take you to my uncle. So she always, like, because her kids were living here and all that, so she was just with utensils and plates and everything. I never had any problems. So we went to her uncle's house. So we were sitting for dinner, and all of a sudden exactly the same thing happened. They brought the food, and I'm waiting for my basically utensils and plates to be served. And they were very wealthy, upper class, so the maid came in with a jug of water and a bowl. Everybody washed their hands with clean, nice towels everybody had, and everybody started with hands. And I'm like, am I going to do that or not? So I'm thinking, and being me, because I'm bad. I'm very, very bad. And that's recording. I have to cut it. So I didn't do it. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, I did not do it. It was bad, but I wasn't getting paid like the Dutch executive. If I was getting paid, probably I would force myself to do it too. But I was paying to stay there. So I'm like, I guess you're not doing it. And again, you have to understand, not only me, but I am very picky about the food anyways. So for the whole time I go travel around the world, I never go to McDonald's here in the United States. The only times I go McDonald's is outside of the United States because this is the only thing I know. So when I see the big M, so I run to it because I know that's the only thing I know. That's it. When I stayed in China as a faculty, I stayed in China. The only thing, and I had to go to downstairs for cafeteria with other students. The only thing I ate was rice every day, just a little bit of rice, watermelon, and bananas. Like for the whole time. First time 15 days, second time 15 days. That's all I did. So it's just me. When I go back home, by the way, you know kebab is very famous, right? Persian food, right? I never touched kebab in my life. And my husband always says that you're the only Persian that I know in my life that never touched kebab. So I'm weirdo. Not that I didn't do it just in Morocco. I go back home and I do the same thing to my own food too. For Middle Easterners, eggplants is very, very big for us. I have never touched eggplant in my life. Never. I never tried it to see if I like it or not. It's just the way it looks, I can't. So it's just me. I'm bad with food anyways. So now we have 3 views. Probably I'm one of those views that I shouldn't be traveling a lot. For management views, we have 3 views. One is ethnocentrism, like me. I'm not etnocentrist, but I'm making fun. They only see in front of their nose. They don't see any further. Wherever they go, they're going to embarrass the company. They're not going to send them outside for representation of the company. If they're good employees, keep them domestic. Don't send them outside. They'll be embarrassment to your culture. Because they're not open to any other culture. They're sticking to their own culture. Mine, I'm not sticking to my own culture. Probably I'm sticking to my own attitude. Try to put attitude, probably I'm sticking to my own attitude. The second one is polycentric. They are the views, those management types have the views that they're open to certain cultures. For example, if they say I'm open to Latin America, send them to Latin America. If I'm okay with Asia, send them to Asia. Because when you don't do that, they're going to cost you a lot. You're spending a lot of money. You're investing in that country. You're investing on this person. And it will be an embarrassment. So it will be lost. He or she will come back earlier than assignment finishes. So the third type are actually good, which are geocentric views. They have geocentric views. They are the ones that are open to the world. They're open to adjust. They don't embarrass your company. Basically, they adapt to local culture. So geocentric views are managers are the best one for international and global business. Now, for example, the other example is that one Spanish company had a deal with Saudi Arabia. They won the bid, so they basically prepared, they sent the crew to Saudi Arabia, and at the airport, their entrance was denied. So they were not allowed to enter to the country, even though they had visas in hands, in their passports, but they were not allowed to enter the country because it's always the discretion of the immigration officer. Even though if you have visa, it's discretion of the immigration officer, always. They can actually return if they want to. So they did actually, they denied the entry. What do you think was the reason? The Spanish company sent 7 of its people to Saudi Arabia. They landed in Saudi Arabia. They were not allowed to enter to the country.
Dress code.
Very good. Who said that? You said. Very good. Exactly. It was a dress code. And, of course, dress code of who? A female employee, right? So it was a female employee that they sent with them, with the crew, and she had miniskirt. So not only she didn't have her head covered, but she had miniskirt. And of course she wasn't Georgina to change the law for her. I'm kidding. You guys know what I'm talking about? You know it. Because Ronaldo, you know that Ronaldo had a basically deal with Saudi Arabia, $200 million per year is his salary. For him and the girlfriend, they changed the law. Because they were the country you were not allowed to have domestic partners, but now you are. Just because Georgina is not legally married to Ronaldo, but they're domestic partners. So in order for them to stay for long term, which has to be a couple years in Saudi Arabia, they have to change a couple laws for them. So I'm making fun, like the Spanish girl wasn't apparently Georgina. That's why they didn't change the law for her. But they denied the entry for the whole crew, returned them back. They came back and the company called them and asked them, please, to reconsider. They'll send a new crew. It was not accepted. And they were so insulted, they thought that it was disrespectful to their culture. If you wanted to work with us, you should have known our culture. I'm not saying which one is good or bad, but what I'm saying is that when you want to go to the other country and make money out of them, at least do your research. I mean, sending someone with mini skirts to that culture would be probably just not appropriate to do. That's why the deal didn't take off. So these are a couple, very few examples that you might not even think about it, but it happens all the time around the world. Let me give you another example. We are heavily relying on attorneys, right? Every deal we want to do, we have like 100 pages of contracts, every single thing you have to sign, right? Everything is being said, signatures, contracts, attorneys, all the time. There was an American company having a deal with Japanese company. They sent their attorneys to Japan. Next day, he says, I was preparing for the whole week and I had 100 pages of contract and I had to present PowerPoint presentation to go over all that, like this is what we're doing, this is this. So he's like, the Japanese executives are sitting, about 11 of them sitting in a room, and I'm going around, and which we're going to talk about that culture, going around the room with hands, like expressing myself, this is what we do and all that, and then at the end, and everybody's just looking at me, he says. Everybody's like, just look at me. He's like, I'm getting nervous because I'm not getting any feedback by their looks. Like, what do they mean? They didn't like it? They didn't like it? So, and he's like, I'm trying more and more, and still nobody's talking. So at the end of the hour, he's like, okay, I'm done, I guess. And he gives it to them to sign. Everybody puts it in front of them, and he says, I actually made packages separately for each of them and put it in front of them. So they look at it, and they're just thanking, just like this, and that's it. So he's like, I'm coming out, calling my boss, US. I'm like, I'm so confused. I don't know if they liked it or not, but nobody did anything. Nobody gave me feedback. Nobody signed it. Nothing happened. He's like, it's okay. I'm going to call them back. After a couple of days, they receive an email that says, we figured that it was very disrespectful that you guys went over contract yourselves. You didn't even ask any input from us. And it was just one-way negotiation to us. We don't sign a contract if we're not writing it. So it has to be both mutually written together, and we mutually agreed, and then we both can sign. You don't print it for us, bring it here for us to say, oh, if you like, you sign it. That's so disrespectful. So they learned a lesson, basically. And these are big companies. So it happens all the time. It doesn't mean, okay, if it's only small companies, they might not understand the other culture. It just happens constantly. So with that said, all these examples, let's get started with what basically culture is. Centrism and all that. So culture embraces a couple important factors such as language, religion, social structure, and education. Language, as I said, there are two basically factors, components to language. Verbal language and non-verbal language. Verbal cues, non-verbal cues. Verbal cues is like basically what we're talking. Non-verbal actually is very important. For example, I'm talking with hands all the time, right? Middle Easterns, Latins, Italians, we're constantly talking with hands. This is very disrespectful if my students were Japanese. So for Japanese, you have to have your hands on the sides, and you're very respectful when you're talking. You don't go around talking like this, looking into people's eyes. That's very disrespectful. When a superior talks to you or an elderly in Japanese culture, it's considered very rude and daring if while they're talking you look into their eyes. You shouldn't be looking into their eyes. You have to look on the like down, like this. Versus for us, if I'm talking to someone, you're looking down, I would say, excuse me, are you listening to me, right? I think like they're ignoring me. But for them, it's exactly opposite, because if you look into their eyes, it's daring and disrespectful. You have to look down. So authority position and elderly. Couple other things. As far as feedback, giving you feedback, we have basically two types of main cultures. One is low context culture, one is high context culture. Low context cultures are cultures that are short, straightforward, and to the point, such as American culture, European culture, Western European, Northern European. If I ask you, for example, let's say I'm giving you a lecture and I'm asking you for my feedback, like, how was the lecture? Probably Americans or Europeans, are you open to feedback? Can I give you a comment? Well, it was good. You can do this next time, if they want to be polite, right? That's basically. This is low context culture. For high context cultures, you're not going to get an answer, straightforward answer. Now, those straightforward answers could be two types. Not the straightforward answers could be two types. One is Asian type, which is like Japanese. One is, which is East Asia. One is West Asia, like Arab culture or Middle East. So what happens is that from these two types of people, you don't get an answer, but different ways. Asians, Far East Asia, if you ask them, you will definitely not get an answer. They will just look at you and they're like, and it happened to me, believe me. I was teaching at predominantly Korean students, and they were like, they're always like this. So I don't know, like, because I'm asking questions, I was really confused because I wasn't getting, like, is it language barrier problem? Is it anything? But no, it was their culture. So usually for faculty, for teachers, they respect a lot. They don't even talk back. They're just smiling at you. The other high context, this is high context, right? But the other example of high context, which is Middle Eastern culture, West Asia, they don't, just like Japanese, you're not going to get an answer from them. But they just don't look at you and smile. We talk. I'm going to take you around the world and talk and talk and talk, but you're not going to get an answer from me. That's for sure. So, because I feel it's rude if I don't talk and I don't want to tell you anything, I don't want to tell you the truth, so I just talk about different things, we go around, I just give you examples, but I'm not giving you an answer. So, both high context cultures, you didn't get an answer from me, but different ways. Low context cultures, very short, to the point, and brief. That's low context, which is mostly Anglo-Saxon European style. So that's as far as basically the two main types of cultures. Now, let's go to religion. Very important fact about religion. I just gave you guys an example about this Spanish company that went to Saudi Arabia. That's mostly based on their religion. Religion actually tells you the working days and days off. Remember we talked about it? Like in predominantly Muslim countries, Fridays is off. Basically, it's a holiday for them. Or if it's open, usually for every day, basically. For every day, they're, instead of lunchtime, which is 1 hour here, they have 2 hours, because usually it's lunch and prayer together. So that's why it's 2 hours. Mostly you might see all businesses shut down during those 2 hours, which is usually 12 to 2. So between 12 to 2, some countries, almost entire businesses are shut down. And then they open up after 2 and stay longer than like 6, 7, 8 that we stay here. So that's basically how it works. You have to be very careful. You adjust your time and hours. You know that they are not basically at work on Fridays. They are working on Sundays, for example. Other things about their dress code and food items. For example, you have to understand you're not asking for pork in certain countries. Not asking for alcoholic beverage. All those are illegal in those countries and frowned upon, even though if it's not illegal, but nobody probably uses that. At least only tourists is available for tourists. Social structure actually refers to like family orientations, if it's nuclear family only, or they live with extended family members. Usually Western cultures here, we are in a nuclear family, which is usually mom, dad, and 2 kids, we say here. But many other cultures, for example, Indian cultures, people live with their extended family members. The grandparents might have a big house, and all their kids, with grandkids, they all live in different rooms. It's very common in certain cultures around the world. And also in those cultures, everything is based on respect of elderly people. And companies are even are based on seniorities. Everything is based on seniority rather than skills, probably. And education, some cultures, education is very important. Some cultures is not so important. For example, for Koreans, education is very important. We have one of the highest suicide rates among young males in Korea. Because if you're not accepted into university, many of them, they commit suicide just because it correlates to not having a future. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what it means to them. That's why they committed suicide, unfortunately. And the highest rate of suicide among CEOs is which culture? Japanese culture, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. So now, on the other hand, I was watching the documentary. Colombians, not that education is not important to them, I'm just saying it's not as important as Koreans. It was showing in that documentary that families bring like their 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old daughter, girls, for a beauty pageant contest, because to them, moms basically said, this is how she's going to have a future. In my country, or where I am, like with a certain region or whatever it was, it's not about how much education she gets. It's not going to get her anywhere in reality. But if she can win these things from this age, she probably will have a better future. So it really depends what parents think will give a better future for the kids. So that's as far as education. Now, let's go to the good part of, okay, here. So let me go to Hofstede. This is what I want you guys basically to do. This is the most important part. When you have to do sociocultural, this is what you're doing, okay? Okay, so this is Hofstede's dimension, we call it. Hofstede, and this link is already on your Canvas page. Hofstede he actually died in March 2020, was a Dutch corporation psychologist, organizational development, basically psychologist for organizations. He traveled around the world from 1968 to 1972 to write his dissertation, doctorate dissertation, and that's what he did. After he finished it, he came up with his 5 dimensions. So every time you type Hofstede's 5 dimensions, because there are 5 dimensions, this is going to come up, but I will tell you that right now it's actually 6 because he added the 6th one in 2006. But originally it was 5 dimensions. So he came up with 5 dimensions, which we're going to go over that right now. You have to give me just 4 countries. Give me 4 countries. I type them here, and then I'll go over that, explain it to you. You can give me 4 countries of your final paper too, if you want to check them.
Japan.
Mexico.
Okay. 4. You can give me 4.
India.
What was it?
India.
India. Okay.
Italy.
Italy. Okay, so I like the countries. These are the original 5 dimensions: power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation societies versus short-term oriented societies, and then indulgence. He added this one in 2006. So if you see it says 5, that means there's 5, and then this is the last one. Okay, so now let's go over that. Power distance societies. Power distance societies doesn't necessarily mean that there is a huge gap between poor and rich, but also, it's not only that one, but also social mobility is minimal in high power distance societies, meaning they say In high power distance societies such as India and Mexico, if you're born really poor, you probably die really poor. If you're born really rich, you probably die very rich. Meaning there's no social mobility. In United States, you can be born very poor, or Western European countries, but if you're working hard, if you go to have higher education, you'll get somewhere, eventually somehow, right? Hopefully. But in those countries, you don't. So there is no, the community, basically society doesn't offer you any social mobilities, right? So you see here, Mexico is very high, India is very high. In African nations, there are a couple of African sub-Saharan nations that are very high. Philippines is very high. Actually, power distance in Philippines is very high. Meaning, if you're born very poor, you're going to die just like that. You can't go up the ladder. The other thing is that power distance is, you don't see in United States, for example, a CEO, because CEOs here could be extremely wealthy, right? So a CEO going to, after work, everybody, including CEO of a big company, going to gym together or to sauna together, right, with employees. But in Europe, you will see that. Like Sweden, Germany, Denmark, same CEO does the same thing. The CEO of the company does the same thing that others, or even lower level employee of the company does the same thing. But here in the United States, it's somewhat average, and over there, you don't even see that happening at all. So all of them are actually either average, which is even Italy in Europe, but it's southern Europe, or higher. So these countries are mostly high power distance societies. But if I would put, for example, here like Sweden, probably you would see the ranking is probably here. It's very low. There's not much distance between power. Now, the second one is individualism versus collectivism. Of course, European culture, individualism. Hofstede basically said, after traveling to so many countries, he said 100 countries around the world, I will give United States number one. The US are the most individualistic society I've ever seen. So for us, the ranking, I think we're 91. So 91%, we're individualistic. Meaning, we put priority, well-being, the priority is on me as an individual versus the well-being of the society, of the community as a whole. Japanese, for example, is exactly opposite because they're highly collectivistic. So individualism, Mexicans are actually less than that. So collectivistic, and highly individualistic, and we're right here too. So these are collectivistics, meaning the well-being, the priority puts on the well-being of community as a whole, not only one person. Have you heard we use a lot of times, I don't care? Because we don't care. I don't care what happens to you, I do, but like as a society, right? So when I said one time to my Korean student, and she said that we don't even have the terminology because it's so rude to use that to say you don't care. I mean, literal translate, you can do it, but as a terminology, it's just rude to keep saying I don't care because you have to really care. You don't use it all the time. But she was saying like in the United States, I constantly see people using I don't care. So let me tell you this. Because we don't care, I don't know if it's good or bad, but now, let me give you an example. Let's say during Corona, COVID, when it hit, automobile industry was actually taken very hard because nobody was buying automobile anymore, right? So they started going down. Let's say we have an American automobile company and we have a Japanese automobile company. What do CEOs do at the time of hardship to keep the company going? So what does the American CEO do? Very good. The American CEO let people go. Where? In the bottom, not in the top, right? So in the bottom. I don't care, so let them go. Because I need to keep the share high for my shareholders and for myself, right? That's how we basically keep the company strong to move forward. How about the Japanese CEO? What do? Any guess, assumptions?
The opposite.
Probably lower the income for the like executives to.
Very good, exactly. They take a pay cut and they start from the top, from themselves basically. CEO and then other executive officers and then VPs and then directors to keep the people in the bottom for sure. You don't let people on the bottom go because we do care as a community, as a society. So they usually never let them go. When you get hired by a Japanese company, that's how it was in the past. Right now a little bit less, but in the past strongly was like that. People would get like graduate from high school, hired by a company, and you would retire by that in that company. So it was always because their system is based on loyalty. So yes, the Japanese CEO will keep the people in the bottom. The other things they would do is restructuring. For example, sales is down, and during COVID they didn't even have sales, right? Sales is down. What they do, they actually move people sales department and put in, for example, in research and development. So give us a couple of ideas, feedback. What do we do now? So you were frontline employees. You know what people say. What do you think we should do right now to make it better? After basically sales picks up back again, they can put them back to sales department. But they will keep them within the company. We have CEOs, Japanese CEOs, that they even sell their own cars, basically private car, to make sure they commute with public transportation to make sure they put it back to company, they don't lose anyone, employee. So that's how they feel responsible for the company. Let me show you this ad. This is Japanese is a fascinating culture. Japanese company apologizing for increase. Let's see if I can pull up the video. Okay. Look at this one.
But you. Wow.
Okay, you know what happened? They actually had to increase the price of a unit of ice cream by 9 cents. And they came and apologized to the nation. We are so sorry that we have to earn your hard-earned money by 9 cents. That's what it is. And recently, the one cable company actually did it. This is a little bit older one. Just recently, last couple of weeks, a cable company came because they raised the subscription rate by 10 cents a month. They came to TV CEO and the whole company and apologized and bowed to people. Very sad face that we are apologizing that we have to earn your hard-earned money by 10 cents each month. So this is their culture. It's just a fascinating culture, honestly.
We need more of that here.
I have been to Japan, and I always say it's just it looks like that Japan is not in this world. To be honest with you, it's something very different. You go to Starbucks, everybody's lined up, nobody's talking, like a ruler, lined up like this. Everybody has their mugs in hand because you bring your mug from home because it's a waste. It's a national treasure and waste if you have papers, right? Paper cup. So, I mean, I didn't have it because I was a tourist, so they knew it, they gave it to me. But everyone else had their ceramic mugs in hand, standing in line. Napkins, there's no napkins. There is napkins, just very few for tourists like me that don't know. Everybody else uses a cloth. very clean cloth. You basically use it for whatever reason you need it. But you don't use national treasures, which is your natural resources,
Wow.
the trees. So it's just a fascinating culture. You'll be amazed how these people basically save and work hard and conserve, and they don't complain, nothing. But we know, unfortunately, Japan is the first country in trouble as far as the resources. We know that we have three types of resources. I think we talked about it: capital resource, human resource, and natural resource, right? These are the main resources for any country. Japan has a big problem with their human resource because their human resource is shrinking. They have actually, as a matter of fact, one of the best human resource in the world, right? But it's shrinking big time. After World War II, they started working so hard. In 1970s, kids born in 1970s, they wouldn't see their dads actually for a period of time because dad was always at work. And by the way, in Japan, if you fall asleep at work, it's actually considered very good. It's a value. You know why? Because you're working so hard and you're not going home to take a break that you fall asleep at work, which really happens. If the CEO, if your boss is there till 12 a.m., you're staying there till 12 a.m. It's disrespectful to leave. And the boss is not leaving, so everybody stays there. No, I'm serious. So they stay there, and people, except other than people who live in Tokyo, other people come from outside the surrounding cities, small towns, they come to Tokyo. So when they stay there till 12 a.m., they don't have time to take the train, go back home, and then come back in the morning, 8 a.m., be at work. So it's not worth it for them. In the 70s, government started developing a basic idea of capsule hotels. So they stay there for a very cheap price, because if they wanted to stay in a hotel, that's very expensive. Tokyo is extremely expensive. So you could only stay at capsule hotels, pay minimal, so you can, for a couple hours, and then you can get started next day. That's what they wouldn't go home, so kids wouldn't see them for weeks. Yes.
And they also go by like the 40-hour work week, or is that also completely different?
Oh, it's very different. It's not even 40. Oh no, it's just not stoppable. They don't stop. They go till 12 a.m.
And they get paid per hour also, or it's?
Some jobs, like for example, what is it? Stores, department stores, and all that is by hour. But you know what? To them, it's like they're putting effort for their country because they're building the country. That's how they look at it. It's not like competitiveness that we have here. Oh, I'm working to CEO, make money. It's not like that. It's mostly, there's no work-life balance. Forget about that, of course. But it's mostly work. But what they do, they're so patriotic. They think I'm doing it for my country. That's what they're doing. And you know what? They did so much that they couldn't raise a family, so they didn't get married. Because they didn't get married, the ones in born in 70s and all that. So in 80s, they noticed that there was a huge drop of childbirth. So was Germany, because Germans did the same thing. So in 80s, when they compared it, both defeated countries were after World War II, both started rebuilding their countries after World War II, just relying on their human resources. By 80s, Germany noticed that, you know what, if we want to continue this way, we're not going to have any human resources in the future. We're going to have problems. So I'm going to actually accept immigrants, just like the United States, and change my immigration policy, and then they did. By 90s, Germany changed already. In Germany, you could stay for 50 years, you wouldn't be German citizen. You could marry to a German citizen, you wouldn't be German citizen. If your parents are not German citizens, you're born in Germany, you wouldn't be German citizen. So it was just by blood. That's why it was very difficult to become German citizen. They changed it because of the human resource issues they had. Japan said, I'm not going to change it because we don't like immigrants, because they're so proud of their culture. So they didn't take it. They replaced everything by robots. You see like how everything comes from robots. Like Honda was basically the leader to build everything robots. So they did. Unfortunately, right now, after 50 years, after 70s, they're having problems. There's no one else to even make robots. Majority of their population will be non-productive years because in just a couple of years, like 2025. Non-productive years are 0 to 18 or 65 and above. Productive is 18 to 65. So they're going to have more non-productive ages. And this one, it's very little actually. The majority of the country, of the nation is 65 and above. So they're facing this problem so much so that finally, after so many years, just less than 10 years ago, like 5, 6 years ago, they started changing their immigration policy. Like they had no other choice. They had to. And it was interesting that the first group of people that they took, it was from Nepal. And their policy basically says parents under the age of 30 and kids, the more the better, but under the age of 5. Because they want the culture to basically, to kids to learn the culture. And when you go there, the first group, you know what they do? They don't teach you necessarily Japanese language, but they teach you culture. So there's a workshop, basically Japanese employee is there to teach you Japanese culture. Respect to elderly, to basically seniors, to authority position, bowing. Bow basically has different connotations, like half bow, full bow, they all have like different meanings. So they're teaching them this, and then also cleaning. You clean after yourself. There's no one else cleaning after you. Schools don't have janitors. They don't have custodians. Like universities, they don't have these things. Everybody cleans after themselves. Kids stay at 3 p.m. at the school just to clean up the school, bathrooms everywhere, kitchen everywhere, and then they go home. So this way, they're actually concerned about everything. They don't waste basically human resource in that country. Yes.
So for immigrants, are they able to get like the citizenship or not?
Eventually, apparently, I honestly don't know about that. I know it's extremely difficult, but I'm assuming eventually they are. Yeah.
I know in Germany you have to give up your actual nationality.
No, not anymore though.
No?
No, not anymore. No, you can keep it now. Yeah, it was in the past, but not anymore. That has changed too. Yes.
Actually, for Japan, I actually did hear that as well. That like this recently, like this TikToker back, I think like 2 years ago, she posted how like since she married her husband right there, she had to give up her U.S. nationality.
Japanese, yeah, they have to.
Well, citizenship to become a full Japanese citizenship.
Yeah, Japanese they have to. Because I had a very good friend of mine, she was here many years, but she was not U.S. citizens. Because I remember at time of voting, I would say like, who do you vote? She's like, I'm not U.S. citizen. Because I have to give up my Japanese citizenship and I don't want to give up my Japanese citizenship. That's what she said. So that's why, yeah, you're right. Some countries you have, you can have dual citizenship. Some countries you have only one. For them, it's only one citizenship you can have. And some of them, they don't want to. So, yeah, it's a fascinating culture, to be honest with you. And that's as far as their caring. Let's go back here. How they care, individualism versus collectivism. They care about the collective society as a whole. Now, let's go to masculinity versus femininity. It's not about how many people are on the basically power, how many women have like high government positions or how many men. It's the characteristic of men and women for the whole society. For example, in the United States, we're aggressive, we are competitive, we value materialistic accumulations. Like if you have a better car, better house, better status, it's like you look good if you have those. Those are masculine societies. Now, Japanese have exactly the same thing too. For Japanese, it's good accumulation of wealth. For example, having a nice car, your status is high, you have a nice house. But there are countries, for example, Sweden, that they are very feminine societies. Sweden actually would be like number 5 or 3 or something like that, but 5% only. The characteristics is like motherly, that's why they say feminine characteristics, because it's a mom for their kids. They want like a better future, better health care system, better nutrition, best education system, these type of things, right? So they say in Sweden, the whole society wants this for the entire society. So they don't care how much money you have, and honestly, European countries mostly, but definitely Scandinavian countries, it's not like who has a better Apple, like iPhone, who has a better, bigger house? What is your car? Is it Tesla or something else? Like blah blah. They don't even care. A physician with like their lowest level in society, they all take a public transportation, go to work. They don't even care if you have a car or not. Who cares about that? So that's why they're called feminine societies. Now, the next one, Mexico is also feminine society, Italy feminine society. I'm very surprised India is 56, honestly. I would think India must be higher, like as far as like, masculine society is masculine society, I would think this one would be higher too. Again, only European countries are mainly, and of course New Zealand, Australia would be feminist societies too. Now, this is uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty basically means risks. Which countries would like to avoid risks? The Japanese really avoid risks. They don't like to take risks. When you take risk, what comes with it?
Failure.
Very good. That's actually interesting you said that. When I ask, when you take risk, what comes with it, my Asian students always say failure. This morning in one of my classes, I asked what comes with it. Everybody said rewards. And I was like, wow, that shows the difference in culture. Because they look at it, failure, so I'm not going to do it. You guys looked at it like it's reward, so I'm going to do it. But it's interesting that your local student, which you said that failure. So exactly, when you take risks, failure comes with it, right? That's why Japanese don't want to fail, because when they fail in the society. Remember, they're a very collectivistic society, right? And they don't want to do that. Again, remember, CEO rate of suicide among CEOs is highest in Japan because they don't want to fail the society. When their company fails, they commit suicide. And by the way, suicide is not doesn't have the same connotations that we have here. For them, it's actually an honor. Because you didn't want to live like that and you take your own life. It's an honor of it's called harakiri from a samurai culture.
Isn't it like they would rather die than be a failure to the
Oh yeah,
community?
exactly. Because it comes from their samurai culture, yeah. So they want to, they do avoid risks. We do not avoid risks. We don't avoid risks. We take risks, they don't take risks. So Indians are probably mostly like us. They take risks too. Swedish, they take risks a lot. Asian cultures don't take risks other than Singapore, and then also Chinese too. Recently, they do take risks too. Because again, it has correlation with this one. If you fail, you're failing the society and all that. Now, long-term oriented versus short-term oriented. Orientation is the introduction. If I have a deal with another company, let's say I'm a businesswoman and I want to have a business deal with an American company or versus Japanese company. For American companies, we're very short-term, meaning if I know the numbers of the company, if I look like they're going, like their stock is going high and all that, I'll probably have a deal with them. It's good. It's a good idea. For Japanese, they're not going to have a deal with me immediately because they want to get to know me. They're very long-term oriented. They want to spend a very long time just to get to know me. So they expect me inviting them here, and they invite me back over there. They don't talk about business. They want to talk about just to get to know me, personal stuff, and spend like about 6 months or so, good 6 months to make sure that they know me. Now, you tell me, why would I, as an investor, as a businesswoman, why would I put my money on hold and waiting for the Japanese company to get back to me versus I can start like in a week with the American company and get my money basically growing? Why would I want to go with Japanese?
Loyalty.
Very good, exactly. It's just because of their loyalty. Because at the time of hardship, they're not going to switch to my competitors. They're loyal to me. They'll stay with me. As a matter of fact, a lot of companies around the world, they would love to deal only with Japanese because they know it's for a very long term because of their loyalty. So that's basically long-term orientation or short-term? Yes, go ahead.
And long-term orientation is when we have a business partner, right?
In here, because Hofstede traveled to companies for organizational psychologist he was. So he went to organizations. That's why. In Hofstede. But if you want to apply it to personally, they are very, very loyal to. Yeah.
Okay, but it's only like connections between business partners, right? No connections to customers, no connections to clients.
Oh, no, with customers too.
Oh, yeah.
Very much with customers. Oh, absolutely. The ad, we just saw that, how they're coming and apologizing for the customers, to the customer. Oh, it's actually with customers too. And the last one is indulgence. I am actually glad that you guys asked for Mexico, because he said, again, this is not the 5 original dimensions, this is the 6th one, but he added later. So he said, I'm going to give 97 to Mexico, which is number 1. Now, what is indulging versus restraint? It's like, Asian culture, for example, or Middle Eastern, or Indians, we are, especially India, you see here how low it is, we are very restrained. We're thinking always about the future. I want to save because of future of my kids. I want to make sure my kids, I have to throw a big wedding for my kids. I have to buy property for my kids. I have to pay for my school's education, kids' school's education. So everything for the future versus indulging are the ones that right now they have the money, they like to spend whatever they want to do with it, they will do it. So that's basically the meaning. And these are numbers. Italy is restrained, Japan is restrained. Entire Middle East and Asia usually is restrained. And the Americas, usually it's the most indulging. United States is indulging too, not as high as 97, but we are very much indulging as well. One time when I was showing this one in one of my classes, one of my students said, oh, that's so stereotyping, you call us like we're indulging Mexico. First of all, I want to let you know that I didn't write this one, honestly. This is Hofstede. But I want to give you a personal example. About many years ago, when I was 30 years old, me and my friend, he's from Peru, but he's Latin basically, that's why I'm giving the example. We both worked for Verizon Wireless. He was about 7-8 years older than me. His paycheck was bigger than mine, and every weekend he would get his paycheck and have fun, right? So going around, going to bars, drinks, and all that, having fun. And me, being from that culture, we are saving because I'm in my 30s, so I have to save to buy. I purchased my first house when I was 28 because I'm saving. So, but not that I'm not spending at all, but you buy the priorities first. That's how it is for us. So until you didn't buy your basically house, you don't travel. That was me, at least in my culture. So you buy a house and then you can travel and then make it bigger and all that. So I used to tell him that you're spending so much money, you can't buy property, blah, blah, blah. He was always Samanita, oh my God, you're always saving. Where are you gonna go with this money? So eventually he purchased a house in Hammett and he appreciated a lot of equity, sold it, and I was so happy for him. And then he sold it. I'm like, no, don't sell it. You're gonna have this for retirement. He sold it, and he was working for Johnson & Johnson later. Johnson & Johnson, very good company, very good position, and he retired himself. So, but it's interesting, now we're in the future, right? I was always worried about the future. Now it's 20-something years after that, so it is in the future. Now, to be honest with you, he went to Tijuana, he is still partying. Having fun and partying. With all that money, right? But me, I'm still doing the same thing, saving. So in reality, it doesn't mean one is good or bad. There's nothing attached to this chart. It doesn't mean this is bad, the other one is good, or vice versa. It's how you feel and whatever makes you happy. To me, if I was doing that, I would probably feel miserable not because it was bad, because in back of my head, they told me that you have to save. So I would think I'm doing something wrong. That's all. Not that I was really doing wrong at all, but just for me, because that's how I was raised, right? So it has nothing to do with if it's bad or good at all, because it's culture. Culture is always, never bad or good. It's how you feel about it and how you raise, right? Because culture sticks with you for the rest of your life. We learn everything, our value system, by the age of 5. If you see in a bus, an elderly coming in and your parents get up and give you the place to the elderly, this sticks with you for the rest of your life. That's how we learn our value system. So this chart is very important. We're gonna deal with this chart all the way. Whatever country you have, you're gonna put it here and compare it home nation and host nation. If your host nation is United States, you'll be comparing with host nation. And then also how you will analyze it, it's actually here. It will tell you how to analyze. Oh, here. You see that? It already says what they mean. So you come here and then you look into it. You see that? So all of that are here and explained for you, for each different country. So you click on them and then you write about that.
This on the website, it says that there's 6, but then there's like 7 here, and then it says 5 in the book.
Oh, but the book is gonna say 5 because it's original 5.
Oh, I see.
That's why I said indulgence he added later.
I see.
You most will see 5 because indulgence was added only last couple of years.
So 6 then?
It's 6.
6,
Yeah.
okay.
And his website is 6. Yes, please do on the 6 ones.
Okay.
So then we have about culture, we have corruption as well. Oh, this is very interesting. Couple things. Electrolux, a major European home appliance maker, advertised its powerful vacuum machines in the United States using the slogan, "Nothing sucks like an Electrolux." So that's very funny, right? So nobody buys it when you say nothing sucks like Electrolux. But they wanted to basically say the sucking, basically, factor is very good. Now, just like Nova, Chevy Nova in 1970s, they named their car Nova, and in Spanish-speaking countries, people were hesitant to pay for it because they're like, if it says Nova, it won't go. Why would I pay for something that it says it won't go? So you have to be very careful what slogan says, the translation, the naming. A Japanese subsidiary CEO in New York at a staff meeting consisted of all American employees informed everyone of the firm's grave financial losses and passed on a request from headquarters in Japan that everyone redouble efforts. Look what they did. The staff immediately redoubled their efforts by sending their resume out to other employers. So, because Japanese, for them, as I said, they don't quit on you, right? So redouble your effort. They really redouble the effort because they want to keep the company going. But here in the United States, we know if the company is in trouble, I have to find another job. So they came back and they were looking for another job. They didn't get what the Japanese CEO says, like, okay, you have to really redouble because we're not going to let you go. In Malaysia, an American expatriate was introduced to an important potential client. He thought he was named Roger. He proceeded to call this person Raj. Unfortunately, this person was a Raja, which is an important title of nobility in high power distance Malaysia. Upset, the Raja walked away from the deal. Have you heard of Raja? For example, Indians have that too, Malaysians have that too. It's like in British movies, you probably have seen, like they say, sir, whatever, blah, blah. They have like a prefix to their names if they're from a high society. So the countries that have cultures that have high society, low society, they always have a prefix of nobility. In the United States, some Brazilian and Japanese expatriates treated American secretaries as personal servants, insisting that they serve coffee. Shortly after arrival, a British expatriate angered minority employees by firing several black middle managers, including the head of affirmative action program, So they were all sued by employees. You know affirmative action programs, right? It's for minorities. And then the head of affirmative action program was also fired because he was or she was black. So these are just a couple of examples, blunders that happened because they didn't understand the culture of the host nation. And let me just give you the corruption fact. Let's look into corruption. You know, corruption can be a cultural fact too. For example, in countries like India, Russia, India too, Russia or even Mexico or Nigeria, you cannot do business if you're not corrupt, right? So you guys know probably how corrupt Mexico is. So we're going to look into here, and if you're not corrupt, you can't do business. You literally have to be corrupt to do business. In Russia, IKEA opened a store in Russia. IKEA built a mega mall with the help of a developer, mega mall, and opened a store in Moscow, Russia. On the day of grand opening, that's how much money they put there. On the day of grand opening, the local authorities turned off, they shut off the electricity line because IKEA refused to pay them bribe. So they shut off actually electricity. IKEA was prepared for that. They had generators. So they turned on the generators because they knew since they didn't pay the bribe to local authorities, they might actually shut off the electricity, and that's what they did. So that's how difficult it could be. So let's look into least corrupt countries and most corrupt countries. Least starts with Denmark. This is basically shows from last year it moved up. This one shows from last year they moved down. Okay. United States says oops, who's this one? Sorry, I stepped on it. Probably a couple times. Anyone's here?
Oh, it's fine.
Oh,
It's fine.
sorry about that. I just noticed it.
It's okay.
So I hope it's still working. So, you know, from when I started teaching 2007, I remember United States was number 14, ranked 14. Right now, I think it's 24, but it went up because last year was 27. So it's just going down. Let's see United States here. Here, it's 24 now. So last year was 27. But when I started teaching, honestly, it was 14. That's how much we went down for the last 15 years. Which country do you want to see? Let's look into Mexico. That's an interesting one, huh? 126. It's actually one of the most corrupt countries. Very, very corrupt. And it's not in the bottom of the list, bottom, because we have a couple few that it's below Mexico. But Mexico is on the bottom of the list too. Extremely corrupt country. We have, let me see, Nicaragua, I think it's worse than, yeah, Nicaragua is 176.
Thanks. Can you show Saudi Arabia?
It's actually not that low. 54. That's in the mine. It's, I think, I don't know, better than half, right?
Yeah.
Because it's 170 something ranking and then 54, yeah. It's not that bad, to be honest with you. Look at Guinea-Bissau, 167. But Nicaragua is one of the worst ones. Haiti, let's look Haiti because I know it's 171. Because I know it's Haiti is the only country in the Western Hemisphere that almost all of their criteria is in par with least developed countries in the world with Africa. So it's the only one in Western Hemisphere that has all the numbers equal to Africa. That's why it's 171, even lower than Nicaragua. Okay, any other country you guys want to see here?
Egypt.
Egypt is pretty bad too.
Yeah,
130, yeah. Egypt is 130. Let's look Russia here. 137. Russia is worse than Egypt.
What's the worst one?
Denmark. Like the worst or best?
The worst.
The worst from the bottom of the list, let me show you. Here. Oh, small. Okay, let me give you guys. Okay, Sudan. Where is Sudan? God, here. Gosh, was it Sudan or Somalia? I think it's Sudan. Did you guys see the video that it's about Olympic game, female Olympic? It's 100-meter running or something like that.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh my
the
God.
girl.
The slowest, so she became the slowest runner in the world, right? For the world record, right? So everybody was wondering, what is she doing there if it's the slowest, right? And they figured that it was the niece of the Sports Federation, International Sports Federation of Sudan, I guess. So he just sent his niece. And you have to see the video. She's like, and everybody's done and looking like she's walking. I mean, the video is hilarious. I'm like, are you kidding me? Who sent this one? And apparently the entire stadium were thinking, who sent this one? And they figured it was just the niece of the guy, and said, just go, it's okay. Like, speechless. At least do something in your own, within your own like, geographical boundary in your country. Don't send them to the international level for the whole world to see that. Yeah. So Wednesday, whatever we learned so far, you will apply it on your paper. Okay? So you will come here and then sit with your groups and start P, political, E, economic, S, sociocultural, and then L, legal analysis, which you learned so far with your team. Okay, guys, I will see you guys on Wednesday. And Valeria, thank you so much again.
Oh, you didn't take roll?
Is
Did you take
Oh, I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, yeah.